Hello everybody, I'm Denhamer from the Denhamer Game Channel. Welcome back to HOI4 and to the New Order, and of course the Afrika-Schild mini-series, where today we're playing as Central Africa. And I'll be honest, don't really know how many episodes there's going to be at this moment in time. I have a funny feeling it's probably going to be similar to Sud-West Africa, and we're going to have multiple episodes. But anyways, let's hop in to Central Africa and let's see what we can get up to as Siegfried Müller. So here we are, Reichskommissariat Zentralafrika. We're currently ruled by Siegfried Müller, and we do have 5 national spirits. We have the Heart of Africa, which has given us some very nice bonuses to our industry. Hands-off administration. Soldiers of Fortune. The Lobster War. And the Mercenary Army. And here's the focus tree for just now, because we know there is going to be a different tree for when the war commences, but this is what we've got right now. We do also have the trophy room, which is currently empty, but the right hand side of the focus tree is based around the hunting of different animals, so I have a funny feeling this is probably going to get populated if those go successfully. The westernmost Afrikaner Reichskommissariat Zentralafrika encompasses most of the Congo Basin, what was once the Belgian Congo, and surrounding territories. It is a lush land ripe with impenetrable jungles, wild game, precious resources. A land that beckons to the adventurous man like a siren calling the sailors amidst a tempest. Deadly and beautiful at the same time. You know, it is going to swallow you alive the first chance, and how can you resist? But how can you resist that sweet voice? Reichskommissar Müller will celebrate the new year of German domination over Africa with a great parade, as he has always done ever since assuming the office. The photos will soon circulate all throughout the Reich, making him more of a celebrity than he already is. Truly we are the pride of Africa, in every sense of the word. Central Africa has grown to rely on soldiers for hire to bolster their forces and do regular security work around the colony. The English under Mad Mike, the Belgians under Black Jack, and the French under Bob Denard, and the various native groups each have their own benefits and their own issues with Müller's government, some of which make them untrustworthy. Müller's main goal is to keep these groups happy and to keep them working for him so that he can reap the benefits of their presence. Not only is Reichskommissariat Zentralafrika the wealthiest colony on the continent, it is also a place where all Germans can vacation in, from large jungles to wildlife-filled plains, from mountains to the Great Congo Lake. There's everything a German can dream of in these lands. Of course, all people are welcomed here, but in the new shimmering colonial settlement on the coast of the lake, Hitlerstad, we built a special resort for the finest people. Of course, the waiting list is rather long, so we have the honour to choose our guests. After all, choosing wisely might give us some favours from the Reich. Martin Bormann Jr. is just casually chilling in our territory. As I write to you, Engel, I am preparing my uniform for this year's Triumph Parade. Well, we call it a parade, but Müller calls it a trophy hunt, and it looks like one too. We don't even bother with the salutes anymore. Wild adoration and gushing over this year, the year's biggest conquests, are more popular than military icons. Anyway, the Triumph Parade, tomorrow at noon, the clocks will ring all over Leopoldville, and a series of large trucks, garnished in camouflage decorations so scandalous it would be cause for military trial back home, will ride down the Führer Avenue. Large cutouts will display the biggest hunts of the year, elephants, monkeys, the occasional giraffe, for when Müller's gaze strays to Kenya, and TV screens will blare out this insane circus show to all who care to see it. In fact, I am told it's mandatory viewing in government offices, which would also explain why the office is so empty this time of year. Reichskommissar Müller is much more interested in hunting wild beasts rather than wasting time running the day-to-day administration of Central Africa. However, even he knows that he has obligations to fulfill, therefore he has found a productive and lucrative way to secure both his position and his fun. He has declared that his Reichskommissariat a corporate-friendly administration, leaving German and former Belgian entrepreneurs the chance to seize all resources in the former Congo Basin. In exchange for being given free rein, the corporates pay him handsomely. Part of this money is sent to Germania as part of his obligation as a colonial administrator, paradoxically making him the most productive Afrikaner Reichskommissar, while the rest goes to fund his love for hunting. While indeed clever, this means that the colonial bureaucracy has become a de facto extension of the corporations. Albert Speer Jr., son of Reichsminister of Economics and reformist figurehead Albert Speer, tapped his fingers idly on the chair. So, Herr Speer, what you must do is simple. Just lay low, smile to whoever sees you, and if you're taken on a hunt, tell them you're having a lovely time. Speer forced a smile. That seems acceptable, I suppose, as long as I get time to settle down and read. He leaned back and stared at the airplane window, at the lush forests and mystifying jungles. To many, this would be a vista to boggle the mind, but to him, it was misery incarnate. Now he had to handle being shipped to Africa, to deal with Muller's hunting gang, to make friends in the colonies for his dear, dear father. The private jet set down on Leopoldville's airstrip. Speer donned his sunglasses as he saw two men waiting as he exited the jet. The first he recognised immediately, a brilliant smile shining across his face. The great war hero and buoyant leader of Central Africa, Siegfried Müller. The second he knew only from discreet conversations with the nameless officials, whispering of administration dealings. This was Rolf Steiner. Müller introduced himself first, with as much pomp and extravagance as could be expected. Steiner stood by idly before giving Speer a firm handshake and inviting him to their limousine, where they'd be taking him to his place of residence. Within the car, Müller glanced at Speer. "Do you enjoy hunts, Herr Speer?" Speer put his fake smile back on. "It's not my favourite activity, but I don't have a particular issue with it." Müller grinned excitedly. "Very good, we'll be going on a hunt tomorrow, and would rather like for you to come along, enjoy the sun, get a few trophies, and come home satisfied." Albert Speer Jr. put down the book he had been reading. The hunt he had been taken on was frankly boring, with Müller babbling excitably about the latest animals he had shot. Steiner, whenever he decided to speak, was not the most fascinating of personalities. The rest of the men he was introduced to were all either uninteresting or irritating. The benefit to the trip, of course, was some time alone, away from the arduous lifestyle of being a poster boy for his father's own plots. He stepped up and walked to the edge of the lake and looked across it. God, the view was breathtaking. Hundreds of miles of pure water created by the party itself, a beautiful vista stretching across the ground as the sun burned in the sky. The trees shook lightly in the warm breeze, and the air had a cool smell. However, the atmosphere was still dark to Speer. He sighed and turned around. The resort of Hitlerstadt itself was designed rather badly. It was a place built by utter amateurs. It was just too much, clearly a slipshod attempt to make a building look impressive while understanding good aesthetics. There were random parts jutting out everywhere, and the facadrant was a giant confused mess. But now wasn't the time for agricultural analysis. After all, everyone looked happy. Albert Speer Jr. praises. Oh, excellent. Okay, why is he giving us praise? He clearly did not enjoy his time here. Reichskommissar Müller is getting bored, and a bored Müller means only one thing. A new safari is a matter of time. It's in the air. The Reichskommissar is cleaning up his gear and filling requests for ammunition and fuel for his personal helicopter. From how much he is requesting, this one will be the greatest Central Africa has seen in a long time. Blow the horn, rev up the engines, load the rifles. Erich von Manstein peered out the window of his military air vehicle he was travelling in. His gaze fell on the vast range of the reflecting lake and retreating rainforests on the horizon. He wondered what wonderful creatures might stalk these grounds. He laid back in his seat to enjoy the last minutes of careless thoughts, seizing the opportunity to find the peacefulness of the rattling aircraft. Soon his thoughts can rest entirely. General Field Marshal, we are preparing for touchdown. An officer jerked him from drowsing. He sighed. His vacation is finally about to begin. The Wehrmacht, his constant and reliable employer, gratefully provided a vehicle to bring him to the fabled lands of Africa. On the advice of fellow officers, he heavily endeavoured to visit Reichskommissar Müller, a reportedly gracious host. Just the right place to spend some time away from the stressful Reich proper. The touchdown of the aircraft sends a spasm of pain through his weary joints. Having stopped the aircraft, the pilot insisted on personally accompanying Manstein embarking. The welcome reception was surprisingly grand. An honour guard and several journalists. A military official approached him with long strides, said hello. He saluted passionately, groping for Manstein's hand. Grand Field Marshal, my name is Oberst Rolf Steiner, the personal envoy of our mutual friend, Reichskommissar. Sent to receive you accordingly. I am his deputy in matters of the highest regard, and I am overwhelmingly pleased to meet the hero of the East. Manstein escaped his growth. A pleasure to meet you, Oberst. Stories of you and your Reichskommissar's adventures have reached my ear as well. Please send my regards, Manstein responded. Oh no, you will meet him. Siegfried would be damned to miss an opportunity to hunt with such a highly regarded figure as you. He personally planned an extravagant trip along his favourite hunting spots. Steiner came closer. He normally keeps them for himself. The Oberst turned and gesticulated towards a great helicopter. The finest rooms in our splendid hotels have been prepared for your trip, Grand Field Marshal. Sometimes it's the simple things, the shaking of the leaves in the distance, the thump signifying the end of a mighty beast. the muffled sobs of a mother clutching her young one. Muller could hardly remember how many times he had undergone an expedition such as this one. But God, did it never get tiring. There was always a predator, one which lived fat and content at the top of the food chain, and there was always a man to challenge whichever animal claimed the throne of the king of the jungle this month. That's what he lived for, the hunt. Muller flashed a devilish grin while the thrill often came from hunting the predator. Muller was not one to discriminate. The prey was just as valuable. Bringing the binocular to his eyes, the tattered tan figure in the distance confirmed his suspicions. Rebels lurked in the underbush. He lifted his scope to his eye and trained on the target in the distance. He bit his lip in concentration. The far distant figure stumbled slowly through the grass. The pitiful scene brought a frown to the hunter. Hunting wounded animals was no fun at all. Quickly, this devolved from a hunting trip to business, and how he loathed business. He shifted his weight and readied his finger on the trigger. 1, 2, 3, bang. The figure spurted blood. Another success. Muller grinned as he took his eyes away from... Wait. He fired a second time. The rebel crawled in the sand still, despite blood pouring two ways. Either this man was resilient or he... Muller peered closer. His legs hadn't moved at all. How the... Like a Zippo snapping open, things clicked into place. The bloody lump was no target. No, that went to his buddy, using his carcass as a meat shield. Well, I'll be damned, chuckled the hunter under his breath. Today was Erich von Manstein's last day of relaxing and consolidation in the wonderful outgrowth of the Reich, Reichskommissariat Zentralafrika. He sat in the cool breeze of the airstream provided by the speed of the jeep. He gazed towards the constantly accelerating image of the shiny, gargantuan lake Hitlerstad stood next to. He laid his rifle away and smiled at the two German hunting companions provided to him after Siegfried Muller's departure a day ago. What a beautiful land this is, so full of mysterious splendour, so full of surprises. Von Manstein visited many places in his old days. Europe was dreary compared to this. He has always been a martial man, but nowhere on earth provided him with so much joy and laughter at shooting, and nowhere on earth had he seen such numerous and interesting game. The hunts might only have been half as joyful as Siegfried Muller, whom he was fast friends with. He boasted great knowledge and experience with these creatures. Though a bit too jovial in places, he was a great host all in all. The tour through the country was absorbing as well. They were spoiled, however, by the deviations they brought to the hunts. In fact, von Manstein, he was just told, spoke with the same eager as Siegfried Muller when he asked his companions this morning to go on a last private hunt. He felt like he regained some of his zeal and vigour. Now, however, the time is ripe to take his leave. While he will enjoy the comfortable lake hotel one last time, his trophies will be embarked on the aircraft already. While he will enjoy a tropical cuisine one last time, farewells must be said to newfound friends. While he has not even taken his leave yet, he already considers a trip to Südwest Africa and East Africa to uncover the whole splendour of the continent already. Okay, Manstein was happy as well. Siegfried Muller had always been a jovial man by disposition, but this prospect of that day's hunt made him especially happy, as did planning for every hunt of his life. The man went over his map another time, detailing the game's habitats and expected locations. From the ream of papers and hand notes, he moved to another table where his equipment for the day rested. Lovingly, the Reichskommissar verified every nook and cranny of each weapon's mechanics. The ammunition he had hand-loaded the previous night, carefully calibrating the amount of powder for his rifle and hunting shotgun. For the tools of the hunt, he carried on to the hunt's accoutrements: water bags, boots, belt, knife, whistle, field rations. As his preparation progressed, Muller's nose and ears remembered previous hunts. The smells of the vast African outdoors, the sounds of beasts communicating with one another, the sight of tracks in the dirt, and the trees scratched by animals. Each hunt was a kaleidoscope of memories and feelings, and he regretted a bit that his memory could not hold it all. Even his hunting diaries only carried a faint echo of the glory of past expeditions. Visiting his diary was the last part of his preparation, and the one he cared the least for. Of course, he treasured the words on paper he found, for they were yet another anchor to previous hunts. But the world of paper left him cold, bored. Every day his bureaucrats begged of him to read just one more document, to sign just one more declaration. Muller pitied the men in their neat suits with tidy glasses. Theirs was a dry world of words and numbers. What really mattered was the thrill, the raw emotions, the fleeting moment where a man could shed off civilization and find the savage joy of the hunt. Muller pitied his bureaucrats, but he was thankful for their dedication. How else would he find so much time to keep hunting? The hunting season! Our chances of success are 0. No beasts in our crosshair. Right, okay. Let's get hunting. But what I am curious doing first though, before we actually get into the animals, is I want to go ahead and meet with Schenck, if that's possible. I want to see the opposite side of what happens with their hunt. That's if he accepts. Schenck, Muller's southern colleague, is a veteran just like him. Surely he'll appreciate a good hunt. The last hunt together in 1958 ended up in their helicopter intercepting a local revolt, which they immediately suppressed by themselves. But ever since then, Schenck's attitude towards Muller has grown colder. Still, years have passed since the last hunting accident, and the Reichskommissar is sure that whatever had made Schenck upset has passed, and if it hasn't, then a good hunt is exactly what he needs to relieve some stress. After a breakfast of bread rolls, coffee and a boiled egg, Muller stepped into his office to do the morning's work. Work usually entailed him going through what ended up on his desk, responding to the most important parts, and sending the rest of it to the subordinates who were supposed to handle it. Usually there was a person who would analyse it for him, but sometimes they sent it on because they didn't know where it should go. Perhaps the Reichskommissar would put another person above the first person to move the tasks the first person missed. To his dismay, it seemed that somebody had dumped a larger number of documents than usual in his inbox that night. Muller sighed and began to work. A few budgetary requests, memos that should have stopped a level or two beneath him, a cooling system maintenance bill for a nearby building, some fan mail that he got from some strange reason, and a telegram from... Why wasn't this on the top? Reichskommissar Schenck thanks you for your thoughtfulness and is honoured to join you for the hunting excursion that Reichskommissar Muller has invited them to. Muller knew what this meant, and he couldn't work. It was extremely important arrangement we made, ones that couldn't be trusted to the director or secretary. The Suez under Italian control, those ungrateful people charge our ships way too much to make trade through the channel a valuable economic choice. This means the only way to reach Africa from Germany is to circumnavigate Spain and the Gulf of Guinea, as Vasco da Gama and other ancient explorers did back in the day. The logical consequence of this is that Central African ports are the closest to mainland Reich, making us the Afrikaner trade hub. While this means lots and lots of money flowing into our colonial coffers, it also means that we have the duty to maintain the large dockyard facilities dotting our short coastline. If the diamond trade were to suddenly halt due to the malfunctioning loading cranes, Muller would experience a new kind of hunt. One where he's the prey and the hunter has an atomic arsenal. His face faded as Steiner put a telegram in his hand. The President of Brazil wants to talk with us, he said. Oh right, that guy. Muller sighed, so he wants to discuss the crab issue. Lobster issue, Steiner corrected, and apparently they think we have to call them when they get serious about this and they end up fighting Germany over this. So I'm the one who has to save the world from another war. Well, should we call them or not? There are advantages, Herr Reichskommissar. We could defuse this issue before it gets any worse and make sure there are enough lobsters for the two of us, but that would require a level of deafness to prevent the higher powers from finding out. Germania, they don't care. Oh, I don't know how to properly pronounce that. Who gives a potato? I'm talking east, not north, Reichskommissar. Muller remembered. Do you know what? Let's have another guest in Hitlerstad. Brazil's president has instructed me to tell you that he's open to a negotiated settlement regarding lobster fishing. That perked up Steiner's ears. So how much do we get? That depends, Alex explained. There will be regulation, inspections, and requirements regarding Brazil's role in all of this. But we would be able to still fish and sell them back to Germany. You would be able to conduct limited fishing operations in Cape Verde area, yes. That was music to Steiner's ears. With the Brazilians open to talking it out, he could call it right there. Here. They still get to do the fishing, and the Brazilians got to claim a favourable deal. There was much more that had to be negotiated tonight. He could easily just accept the deal in order to get the rest over with. Might impress the guy over there too. But was that what he wanted? Sure, it was risky, but he could push for more, much more. He had his foot in the door now. He could easily press them for more, though the beer in him might have been the one saying that. Let's go ahead and see if we can work out a deal. Eventually, everyone realised it would never work. Salles had expected a violent outburst from the man, but in reality, Steiner was a lot more measured about the situation. Perhaps the alcohol prevented the outburst. Maybe it was more sensible for a mercenary than Salles had assumed. But also could have been that Steiner simply did not care so much for the lobster or worry about a conflict after all. No time was wasted afterwards. Once the deal could not be reached, Steiner escorted Salles back into the motorcade and drove back to the airport. No words were exchanged between the two, as there was no need. Everything had already been said. At the airport, Salles bid the host farewell and walked the waiting jet himself. Steiner just watched from the car. This was bad, thought Salles. The Germans weren't reasonable. This trip was the last hope at diplomacy, and it was a complete bust. Now he would have to answer to Lot why things had failed so spectacularly, and now harder measures would be necessary to solve the crisis. Schenck still cut something of a dashing figure. Ever the airman, the Reichskommissar keeps his posture straight and his head held high, in a pose that would no doubt have impressed the ladies anywhere, were this not the middle of Central Africa. Muller walks towards him beaming, and the two quickly embrace, shaking hands so tightly that only the closest and most skilled of hypothetical observers would notice the clenched teeth. Familiarity breeds friendship, but it also breeds some measure of contempt, not that either side would ever admit it. Schenck has prepared a special pistol for the occasion, a gilded one with gold leaf carved by an enterprising native goldsmith, and presents it to Muller, smiling as he does so. Not to be outdone, Muller gives something he has prepared beforehand in return, a fine quality pelt of northern Congo lion skin, rolled up and presented with compliments. A fine exchange, and yet neither leaves quite as happy as they thought they would be. Muller cannot shoot straight with a pistol at 5 meters. Schenck hates fur pelts. Both gift-givers knew of the other's discomforts with their intended gifts and went ahead anyway. Such is life in Africa. The servants are dismissed and the two prepare for real business of the day. Schenck is the first to get in, somehow managing to clamber in with style. Muller, by contrast, tumbles into the cabin, laughing as he does so. The two hold on to whatever they can grab as the airport, Leopoldville, and the Congolese jungle fall away into the distance, a glimmering sea of green and white. The hunt has begun. The mountain grew from skyline to foreground to background to backdrop, in a scene which would no doubt be thrilling if experienced in the movie theatre back in the Reich. Schenck readies his personal weapon, a rifle drawn from the arm stoke of one duke. Guerrillas roam this part of the plateau mountain jungle in packs, and their traces are fairly visible from the air. All they have to do is follow the trail and hunt, and the hunt will be theirs. Then Schenck is shoved to the open rear doors of the copter to keep watch for these guerrillas. Soon he spots where what he's looking for. A distinctive trail of crushed branches, tangled vines and prints on the forest floor, headed east. The helicopter swings around and flies over the trail, headed east. A pack of small figures comes into view, and the copter flies so low over the ground, Schenck nearly falls over from the turbulence. Think about issuing a formal complaint to Germany about this negligence. He points his rifle, aims, and shoots. One figure flies back, and the rest dispersed. Schenck and Muller take immense joy in chasing them down and hunting the pack. Some escape, but many corpses are thrown to the jungle to rot. It seems the hunt has been successful so far. Despite his best inclinations, Schenck is excited about it all. As the helicopter swings in lazy arcs towards the hunting zone, garbled transmissions come through onto the airwave. Trouble, hostile activity, village of, attack, your permission. Muller puts on a headset and begins barking orders. Schenck hides his amusement. Despite Muller's complete disinterest in governing, he hides a formidable capacity for working on the ground. Perhaps he would have done well as a HOI officer. Muller glances at the map pinned on the helicopter's sight and gestures to a region near the mountains with a cluster of red pins. Rebel activity, perhaps? Muller puts down the headset, yelling, "We're getting reports of partisan activity near this area. Old chap, listen, I don't want to hit the brakes on our little endeavour, but it looks like this cluster of hostiles might be close to us, and it's not like we're going to use all these shiny new guns on a bunch of rhinos." He looks so giddily excited, it's hard to imagine he's talking about partisan elimination, not hunting. Schenck closes his eyes and tries to ignore the thoughts going through his mind. Memories of swooping rifles, spitting guns, raining hellfire down little dots that screamed and cried and fell in bloody heaps against the black soil and lay still. He shakes himself to consciousness. Muller is still there, still waiting for his affirmation. Schenck can barely bring himself to nod. The helicopter arcs across the green-brown plains and towards a cluster of huts on the horizon. The long approach from the mountains is hard. Steep winds from the high ground hit the helicopter hard, and through this juddering, Schenck can barely hear what Muller is saying to him. Something about the time he nearly blew up a giraffe by pressing the wrong button. Schenck has... Sorry, that is one of the bizarrest sentences I think I've ever read. Schenck has heard too many stories along these lines from Muller to count, and it seems this one is no different from the others. He focuses attention on the village below, clustering with people and campfires, but gunfire crackles ominously to the edge of the tree line. Are these people insurgents, or just native protection squads? It is difficult to tell. They drop to a low altitude and start sweeping the village or encampment. Occasionally a gunshot rings out as some poor fellow with a stolen weapon fires upwards in an attempt to chase the threat away. Muller yells that they'll have to move in closer to dispose of the rebels, and Schenck steels himself. He's no longer at the stage where the sound of loud noises leaves him a shivering wreck in the morning. Hopefully it will not return this time. The copter heaves up dust and stray leaves as it swings towards the ground, and Muller authorizes the use of extraordinary force. He whips out his custom rifle, gives it a preemptive check. He yells to open the door of the helicopter, leans out and begins shooting. The occasional cry and grunt of reloading are the only sounds Miller makes as he aims and fires. Schenck feels something drop at the bottom of his stomach. Perhaps it is just his soul, or perhaps he never had one. Then the hunter yells to him, "Come, don't just stand there, join me and clean this place up," and Schenck is dragged to his feet before he can utter a single word of protest. Gun in hand, he falls through the motions, aim, shoot, for that one reaching for his rifle, the one barely older than a boy. Down and down and down and down the helicopter descends, down into the black-green depths. Schenck gazes calmly at the shrouded figure, dripping blood and viscera onto the half-painted floor of the copter. That has just taken the Reichskommissar Muller's position. The figure opens its mouth, and out of its mouth comes a word. "Whoa, you feeling okay, Schenck? Want to lie down for a bit? I know hunting fresh game can be tiring. Ha ha ha. It appears the shell shock is back again." Spiraling blades, spinning winds, the world turns onto a dance of endless blood and fire, and as Muller shoots, the things he is shouting morph into little boys and girls in Russian villages. As he swoops in on wings of cold metal and hot lead, the figures burst pop, pop, pop like little fleshy firecrackers and fall apart like broken porcelain dolls, like Mutti used to give at Christmas. How raspberry-ish. How long has it been since he has tasted raspberries? Not like that, surely. Is there blood in his hands, or is it just the wrath of his country on his back? Is there a difference? He barely hears the panicked shouts. "What are you doing, Schenck? I like the trees too, but the insurgents have all gone. Don't make me fill up another ammo request form. Damn you." Finally the word comes back into focus, and the Reichskommissar Schenck sticks his head out the helicopter and retches. He can barely bring himself to stand and stagger back to his feet. Siegfried Müller gazes at the shaking wreck where once lay a Reichskommissar. Schenck's eyes are dilated and his hands are trembling. Müller wonders if he's suffering from the same type of glaze-eyed shock that old Heinrich uses morphine to cope with. He was never the same after the incident with the elephant and the patrol squad. Either way, Müller can tell when a man is beaten, and Schenck is sure as hell beaten. Perhaps the hunt should be called off. He asks again if Schenck wants to continue with the trip. Below him, the ruined village sprawls, bloated and thick with fumes. It appears that they hit a few of the fuel tanks on approach, and some of the figures running from the scene are luminescent, hallowed with gasoline flame. Schenck gazes at the scene and says nothing. His hands, however, reveal what his gasping mouth cannot. Müller shakes his head and calls for the chopper to head back to base. "Maybe another time, friend. Shame you couldn't be a stronger hunter." A corner of his mind thinks that the problem lies within the medical care. Perhaps the partisans have poisoned the medical supply. Certainly the Reich has a decree that only bed rest is necessary for recovery from shell shock, and why would Germania give false instructions to its jungle garrisons? Just as intended, the brute collapsed in the instant, lying still for several seconds until it started flinching uncontrollably. Just in the vicinity of Müller's ear, another shot was fired, cracking the beast's enormous back from behind. Whether it had been alive before, or whether it was a neural excess load, the brute was surely dead now. They approached the dead animal on the ground. Step after step, Müller's grin widened. Barely a metre apart from it, he shook one of his hunting companions by the shoulder and shrieked how he had missed the feeling of overexcitement. He had never slain such a brutish adult gorilla before, and this particularly brutish specimen's head was about to adorn the halls of his palace and bestow upon it the menacing yet tranquil impression this gorilla had radiated. Müller quickly took hold of his senses again. He tried to lift it upright, but had to laugh at its enormity. Instead, they rolled it over in cadence and descended upon it like vultures from their final work of the day. The shot miserably missed the animal. The animal immediately took the flight after a confused look. Startled, the whole group took on the same pattern. Confused looks first, then the flight. The same went for Müller and his companions. Confused looks at the Reichskommissar first. Useless waste of ammunition thereafter. They tried their best to slay at least one of the hoodoos. While they penetrated some of them, there was no coordination amongst the hunters, allowing all of them to flee in the end. Bloody but unbowed. It was too late. All of them were gone beyond the bushes. Nonetheless, they searched for them for some while on the ground. He hadn't any luck with it either. Müller just didn't want to return empty-handed. In his anger, he sent his hunting blades spinning in the air for countless meters. Yes, he had slain some kudos before, but that brought him no closer possessing their cornets in this collection. Forced to make his peace with not slaying the escaped animal on this unlucky day, he took hold of his senses again. While they returned to the helicopter to fly off again, he swore to task some mercenary commando with bringing him the most impressive kudu horns sometime in the near future. The bullet hit the lion's neck, splattering blood on the beautifully coloured mane. It silently collapsed as if Kingdom Come suddenly decided the lion shouldn't live any longer. Müller didn't like superstitious nonsense, He killed the lion as graciously as it had lived. Though 2 of the female lions took to the flight, 1 remained like if it was bound to the male for all time. It certainly was after his companions penetrated the maneless female with numerous shots, splattering guts and brains everywhere. Fortunately, it didn't besmirch his prime prize. He didn't care for the female as long as the male was untouched. He approached the dead animals on the ground. Step after step, Muller's grin widened. He was happy beyond belief. He had slain some female lions and merely 1 male lion before, but not such a ferociously glorious one. Gladly, this particular rare specimen's great mane and head were about to embellish the halls of his palace, and bestow upon it a predator's ferocity and feral nobleness his collection still lacked. The bullet hit the buffalo's breast in an ensuing feast of blood and gore. The beast wasn't felled immediately, still pumping veins in the chest splattered the whole pond, turning it dark red in an instant. The buffalo fought and wriggled uncontrollably, making the impression it was ruptured by a wild predator. Just in the vicinity of Muller's ear, another shot was fired, swiftly pursued by another one. He himself shot again as well, delivering the ultimate blow. The bystanding buffaloes were gone by then, 1 limping in the distance from one of his companion's shots. They approached the dead animal on the ground. Step after step, Muller's grin widened. Barely a metre apart from it, he cluelessly shot in the air as a harbinger of his overexcitement. He hadn't slain a big buffalo for a long time, and this particularly rare specimen's gargantuan horns were about to adorn the halls of his palace, and bestow upon it the beautiful and impressive appearance his grand collection still lacked. The bullets fly everywhere, a mess of blood, gore, soot, and dead animals. Most of the younglings have collapsed by the time Muller and his veterans sent shot after shot in the flesh of the mightiest of them. Shot after shot it rose and sank down again, struggling with an unyielding will to survive. Everyone had reloaded by this point. Muller even thought about going for the head, yet he didn't want to besmirch his trophy. It finally fell for the last time in a long-drawn act of what could have been a staged death in a Shakespearean drama. Not that he ever read or saw one, but he imagined them like that. Finally, the dust settled. They made the tallies on the ground. The females were about to flee out of their eyesight when the predators appeared and slew the beast in a few shots. After adding her bloodied ivory to the reservoir, they greeted Muller with a bunch of smaller and bigger, partially red-coloured tusks backpacked. He had slain only 1 of these mighty creatures, yet he had slain the biggest and wouldn't give the slightest cell of it away. We missed it. The shot miserably hit the sand beneath the animal. Without thinking twice, it ran off. The startled other tobies began running as well, sidestepping amidst the numerous omnidirectional steps excellently. All shot but Muller, whose gun just wasn't doing the job well today, refusing to let him shoot again. When the barrage eventually loosened, Muller looked up again, seeing a cleared field with 1 limping topi barely escaping beyond the bushes. It was too late. All of them were gone. The bullet completely penetrated the cheetah from the side. To Muller's surprise, the cheetah was already on its feet when he opened his eyes again. The gaping wound was too much for the poor thing. It collapsed but moved its head for a few more seconds in a tenderly way before the lights went out, the head hitting the grassy ground. Blood was still running out of the gaping wound, but it was over. They approached the dead animal on the ground. Step after step, Muller's grin widened. He was happy beyond belief. He had tried to slay cheetahs before often, but always failed at their swift pace. Muller had done 1 deed already, to kill his first cheetah. Now he was about to do the second for the day, claiming the reward. The bullet hit the river hog's hump back in an ensuing feast of blood and gore. The beast wasn't felled immediately, still trying to stand up while the other creatures took to the flight. It was shot time and time again. The hoglets were shrieking and running everywhere, miraculously dodging the bullets all the while. Just in the vicinity of Muller's ear, another shot was fired, swiftly pursued by another one. He himself shot again as well, delivering the ultimate blow. Most of the hoglets and other adult hogs were gone by now, and the desired target finally collapsed. They approached the dead animal on the ground. Step after step, Muller's grin widened. Barely a metre apart from it, he cluelessly shot in the air as a harbinger of his overexcitement. He hadn't slain such a hog in a long time, and this particular rare specimen's impressive head was built to adorn the halls of his palace and bestow upon it some more grandeur. The bullet directly penetrated the creature's soft underbelly, ever so slightly beneath the scale armour's roots. Just as intended, the animal collapsed into lifeless hanging, its food splattering on the dusty ground like its blood. Seconds thereafter, the tail slipped off the branch and it dropped into a puddle of bloodied food. Just in the vicinity of Muller's ear, one of his companions started celebrating. Muller nodded at him with a cocky grin. They approached the dead animal on the ground. Step after step, Muller's grin widened. Barely a metre apart from it, he shook one of his hunting companions by the shoulder and congratulated himself on the neat shot that made his hunt an immediate success. He has had his problems with scale armoured animals before due to their robustness, however today was no such day. He could certainly be proud of himself. And that leaves the last one, the majestic giraffe. The bullet flew and directly went through the animal's chest, potentially destroying its heart. It collapsed to the front, bending in a very grotesque manner. Blood flooded onto the grass while the other giraffes escaped, desperate to survive. One of the giraffes attempting to flee was horribly penetrated by several bullets, yet succeeded to ultimately heave itself to safety. The other two escaped nearly unharmed. The deed was done. The victory Miller's. He was even surprised himself how smoothly it all went down. Now it was about time to claim the trophy. They approached the dead animal on the ground, step after step. Miller's grin widened. He was happy beyond belief. He had only slain one giraffe once, very early in the Reichskommissariat ship. He had hunted them after a meeting in Salisbury without permission, while Huttig actually could never have known about it since the Reichskommissariats were still in the build-up. He made some comments about giraffes, some queer comments about giraffes at their next meeting. He probably knew this time as well. This time it was an intrusion on top. Miller quickly gave the orders to help him cut out the trophy. He wanted to be out of East Africa as swiftly as possible. With the hunt over, he started to be wary again. He just hoped Huttig's response wouldn't be unreasonable and rash. The bullet hit the kudu's limb. It collapsed to one side in painfully feral shrieks. The wind turned the sand and it fell on red, while the rest of the group swiftly took to flee the scene. As the kudu tried to run limpingly, they fired 2 successive shots. Blood splatters as the deer-like thing collapsed again. It still struggled on. Another shot. This time, the collapse was eternal, bringing an end to the kudu's loud noises. They approached the dead animal on the ground. Step after step, Miller's grin widened. He was happy beyond belief. He had slain some kudus before during times of the Cameroon conflicts, yet never since. Gladly, this particularly rare specimen's sublime horns were about to ornament the halls of his palace and bestow upon it the beauty and grandeur these cornets boasted. The bullet hit Miller's topi directly under the neck. A stream of blood poured, the poor thing seemingly dry. It collapsed soon thereafter in a puddle of what once kept it alive. The topi lay still, while the others were jumping hurriedly over its dead body, desperately trying to escape. In the end, only 3 managed to. The others were done with by the green hunting boys. He promised himself to congratulate their officer and rouse the tense teenagers they had to do their sorry service to right down here into a rowdy celebration. They approached the dead animal on the ground. Step after step, Miller's grin widened. Barely a metre apart from his prime target, Miller was so happy that he promised a bout of alcoholics in his private chamber. He had slain a more impressive trophy before in the first year of his visit to Wolfgang Schenck, but he hadn't cared about some trophy collection for a greater cause back then. He only started to with progressing age. Well, there we go. We have the full trophy cabinets.